Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to have Lynn Wilkinson with me today to discuss our upcoming Fall 2018 seminar topics, which are modular interior design and architecture, hospitality design, and finally, equity by design. So let's start with the modular interior design and architecture. And why is that relevant in 2018?
Well, first off, when most of us in the profession hear the word modular design, if you've been practicing for any period of time, you have evil flashbacks to bad things in the 1970s. And that was what most people think of modular. And what we're going to show in this class is that modular is actually coming into 21st century and is going to be a driving change. One of the things that I'll show is how they are now building a 57-story high rise in 19 days, which allows for incredible abilities to scale, to customize, cost containment, quality control, labor reductions in cost. And so modular is being really revolutionizing how we've approached construction, which hasn't changed in a couple hundred years, really. Last time we had a change in construction was basically when they had electric power tools. And so this is going to be a big game changer. And this is not the stuff from the 70s. The other thing we're looking at for modular is how it's being applied to all the interiors, how we're able to use modular components to create highly customized designs at a much lower price point. So this way we can finally satisfy the client that wants custom everything, but doesn't have the custom everything budget.
That's great. And you touched on the two comments we hear often, which is basically modular. I don't think so. That's this ugly thing from way back, and I don't want anything to do with it. And the other one, which was interior designers potentially, or people who work on interiors asking us, well, how does this relate to me? And obviously, you made a point. It goes beyond just modular architecture. It also goes into how it applies to interior design. Now, another question we get a lot is, well, what type of design professional does it apply to? Meaning residential, commercial, institutional? We have people say, I only work on this type of project. How does this apply to me? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, this class was actually designed to have a little bit of something for everyone. So if you're a commercial architect doing large scale projects, I'm going to show you again how we can do a skyscraper, how we can do full on hotel design, that they're using this for large commercial spaces and integrating into a hospital complex. They're using modular for just the bathroom components of the patient suites, while the rest is traditional construction. So how in the design profession can you integrate those two together for architecture? And if you're doing residential design, it's the same thing. We're seeing, it started with the old Sears kit houses. Now we're looking at using prefabricated kits that you can design as the architect for the shell structure. And then the interior designers are getting for both commercial and residential also everything from you can do a very customized lighting installation, for example, that can be very cost effective because you're using single modular components to create the overall design with it. So full on huge commercial installations all the way down to residential one-offs that are customized using module components.
Well, that sounds awesome. And I know we've offered the class quite a few times already, and it's received great reviews. So obviously people are enjoying it. So I'm glad we were able to clarify a few things for those who might be interested in that particular topic. Now, the other topic we've been working on is hospitality design. And then you and I went to the hospitality design conference in Las Vegas at the beginning of the year, and that's a topic we've been talking about a lot. But the question here we're getting more often is, well, I don't work on hotels. Why should I attend a class on hospitality design? What's the point?
Well, If you're, say, doing commercial offices or you're doing residential design, what you may not realize is about 15 years ago, we started to see the enormous impact of what is going on in the hospitality design industry is bleeding over and driving the design in all these other elements. So everything from palettes to materials to technologies, that is changing. The concept of wellness and biophilia, those are starting from hospitality and are now bleeding over into just about every other aspect of design. So even if you're thinking, I'm a residential designer, I don't really care. If you look at what's going on in hospitality, a big trend in hospitality is to create a residential feeling environment. And because of the power and the scope and scale of something when it's designed for a large complex, those are those things that we can specify now into residential design. And the structures and systems also are impacting the residential design and the commercial corporate design, restaurant design, all of that is part of hospitality. And that's all coming together as one big element. And they are one of the trend leaders. So it will be impacting us.
I thank you for that. It's yeah, it was incredible to see how there are overlaps between the hospitality design arena and other aspects of design and people working in other type of projects. So that's going to be super exciting to see how this plays out. Now, the next topic, the third topic, that's a new class for 2018 as well, is equity by design. So, of course, the first question we get a lot is what is equity by design? I know it goes by several names. It's designing for social justice, it's designing for the greater good. It's basically about how design can impact lives. At least that's my take on it. What's your take on it? How would you define it?
That's very much it. We're starting to look at our profession a little more closely, from everything from who is in the architecture and design professions, as far as lack of diversity and how that impacts and colors what we do in our design decisions. The concept of that designers, professional designers, everybody in the architecture and design profession are only designing for 10% of the people on planet Earth. So what about the other 90%? And so we're looking at things like that. Right now, we have major issues across the country. One of the big ones is homelessness. We are at the highest levels of homelessness that this country's ever seen. How could the design industry work with cities and states and national to possibly come up with solutions for this that are permanent solutions? The idea of hostile design, which is kind of the opposite side of it, where do we have a responsibility to create things that are good for everyone, or do we have the responsibility solely to do what our client asks us to do? And these are some really big issues. This was a very complicated class to develop. And this is a class where we're really going to be reaching out and asking for feedback. This is going to be a much more interactive approach than we've ever taken before because everybody's opinion matters. And this is kind of how we're approaching our entire profession right now.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because this class was very difficult to develop and wrap our heads around because it does touch on a wide range of issues, and not everybody is going to agree on the power and the role of design and architecture as it relates to changes in our societies. So it's definitely, I think, what I've experienced is a class that asks more questions than it answers. That's been my takeaway, and it's more food for thought. Um,
That's exactly it.
and of course, one of the pushback we get from this class is that it's politically motivated and it's spinning people against each other. So wanted to address that head on because I know even you and I have had our differences on what should be included in the class and what shouldn't. And the bottom line is it's not about our personal beliefs, neither yours nor mine. It's really about putting a lot of questions out there about the power of design to make people's lives better. And whatever that means to you as a practitioner, you get to decide that. But of course, there is no routing for one thing is right, one thing is wrong. But maybe you can share your thoughts on that last point, which is something we're getting a lot when people ask about this class.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong. And it touches on a lot of things that could be thought stimulators, could be hot points for people. What I'm hoping that people will get out of this class is they'll walk away from it and go, I never thought about that from this other perspective, or I never thought about that. Period. But we're looking at broader social issues. This is about humanity, not politics, but people and community and where our profession fits into this greater picture. Because we in our profession, it's really hard. We're so busy working on the project that's in front of us. And believe me, I get that. We've got deadlines, we've got things that have to be done, we've got to pay our bills, all of that's going on. And sometimes the purpose of the CEU classes is not just because you have to take it, but because it gives you an opportunity to see something else that's going on in our profession because we're so busy in the trenches, we don't have time to look up necessarily. So this is a CEU that maybe it'll give you a chance to look up and see the broader scope.
Absolutely. And I think you made a very valid point about the CEUs and how we come about choosing those topics. And we spend quite a bit of time discussing it. And there are two overarching ideas when we select a topic. The first one is, how does this matter to a practicing architect, interior designer at this current time and place? So that's one criteria we use. And of course, the other overarching theme across those different topics, whether it's the modular, hospitality, or equity, it's how can it help interior designers and architects enhance and promote health, safety, and well-being? How can the data in the course, the information, the conversations can be used by those practitioners to enhance life, health, safety, and well-being for those for whom they design? So that's the overarching theme, that's the overarching thought. And finally, those topics, though they may not have been on your radar because of what Lynn just mentioned, of having to push projects forward and being into the work, those have been a recurring theme in trade publications, in research that we've conducted. And those three topics, along many others, have kept coming back as relevant, important themes for 2018, which is what we decided to offer them as CEU courses. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Well, it always comes back to whenever I develop a class, the number one thought, because it's really easy to go off on tangents, is why should you care? Why do you, as participants in our CEU classes at Design Art Seminars, why should you care about a particular topic? And in this case, these three particular topics. And the reason why is simply because they'll give you a window into other things that are going on in the profession that will always be able to come back to what you're doing. So whether you're doing commercial architecture, whether you're doing residential interior design, anywhere in between in that spectrum, there's going to be something in every single one of these classes that you can take home and apply to your business today. So that gives you a reason to care.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat and giving a bit more insight into what those CEU courses are going to be covering. And hopefully you guys will decide to join us. You know how to reach us. You can visit www.designarts.org or call us at 800-264-9605 or email us at info@designarts.org. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you soon either in person or online for one of those classes.